So guys, I have been running for over 10 years, and following a recent injury, I have been sidelined onto two wheels. I've had to cycle. But the thing that has kept me from going insane during this injury has been the Tour de France. I am absolutely obsessed with the Tour de France. From the jerseys, the courses, the different riders, the different teams, I've been absolutely obsessed. I'm fixated, and I've been absolutely loving every second of the Tour de France so far. So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about some ideas that I've got that maybe we could take from the Tour de France to help improve our beloved sport of running. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a runner through and through. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving the sport to become a sub-elite cyclist, semi-professional cyclist. Probably wouldn't even be good enough. But I do think there's a lot of things that we could learn from the sport of cycling, specifically the Tour de France. So yeah, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy these points I've got about how we could maybe improve our sport that I've taken from the Tour de France. Now, I wouldn't say I'm completely obsessed with the Tour de France, but so guys, right, without further ado guys, let's get into my first point about how I would change the sport of running to make it a little bit more like the Tour de France, or at least improve it in a way that is similar to the Tour de France. The first thing that I think we could take from the sport of Tour de France or cycling are these team time trial or time trial events. Now in the Tour de France, during these time trial events, riders compete one after each other completely solo, just them against the roads and against the clock. And then whoever is the quickest sits in the all-important hot seat. Now this is something that we could definitely implement into the sport of running. Runners going one after each other on a set course, a set distance, and whoever's quickest sits in that all-important hot seat. Now I just think that this would add for both a spectacle in terms of the actual participant, but also the viewer as well. So we could sit and we could watch a live stream of, I don't know, 3-4 hours of just running after running after running as people try and dismantle the person in the hot seat's time. Now this could be anything from a mile up to 5k, anything you like, because runners would be kind of going 1 minute after each other, so there's always something happening. And if we could keep tabs on different runners competing at different times, I just think this would create for such a cool spectacle and such a cool event in terms of viewership. Now this could also be incorporated as kind of like a team time trial event, so teams of 4 or teams of 6 take on the course at a time. Now this could be they all just gun it, or they have some team tactics in play where they try and pace each other around to get the overall lowest time. And again, then you'd have the team hot seat, if you like, which team's going to be the quickest. Now we have some similar things in the UK, such as the Home Nations 5k that's going to be taking part in early August, where it's basically a team race. You run and you'll get an individual time, but it's the team with the 4 lowest, or the cumulative lowest time from the 4 runners that overall wins. But we can make this slightly different by incorporating a bit more of a time trial element. I think this also adds the element where people might be able to use it as kind of training almost. You go to Barrowford or you go to London or wherever the course is, and you and 3 or 5 of your other teammates take on a certain course, you train together, you run together to overall get the lowest cumulative time. And I just think this again would add such a cool kind of spectacle to the sport, and another avenue that we could maybe go down, because innately running can get a little bit boring sometimes, watching the same people dominate the same events week in, week out. And I just think it adds a little bit of diversity. The second thing that I really absolutely love with the Tour de France are these custom jerseys for the national champions. For example, the Luxembourger national champion, he wears a jersey that is the same as his branded jersey, his team jersey if you like, but it's in the custom style of his flag. So the sponsors are still on there, but it's got his red, white and blue Luxembourg flag. So for example, Quinn Simmons of America has got a kind of Captain American style jersey on. It's still got his EF Education Easy Post team sponsors and branding on there, but I just think it makes for such a cool spectacle. There's loads of different jerseys, there's loads of different variations. So you've got the different flags, you can have a British one, a French one, all of that. I just think it's something we could add into the sport of running. So Nike, for example, they could still have their Jakob Ingebrigtsen running in a Nike branded vest, but why not have it as like a Norway style? They can do their own custom job on it, whatever they like. I just think it adds like a different thing, something else to look forward to. Or I can't wait to see Nike's Norway style vest for Jakob Ingebrigtsen. And I think that because they'll be so limited and they'll be so kind of sought after, I just think it's another cool aspect to add. But maybe I'm wrong, maybe these are the silly little things that I shouldn't really be worrying about. But again, just something that I thought was really cool in the Tour de France that you might do. So guys, the next thing that I think we could kind of implement into the sport of running are these intermediate sprint or point system kind of during the race. So in the Tour de France, there's this thing called the King of the Mountain jersey, where essentially there are designated points along the course where whoever gets there first gets a certain number of points, second gets a lower amount of points, so on and so forth. And whoever has accumulated the most number of points gets this polka dot jersey, this King of the Mountain jersey. Now, obviously, that requires lots of different races back to back to have a kind of leaderboard going, but I definitely think this is something that we could implement or do something in the sport of running where at 5K, at 10K, 15K, throughout a marathon, for example, there's different amounts of points for different situations or different parts of the course, for example. So take London Marathon just as an example in this situation. Obviously, I know it's a very sacred historic event. I'm not saying that we should change that. But just as an example, obviously, Kelvin Kipton won by quite a way, but he still had company up to halfway. So one of the other athletes might have decided that he was going to go hell for leather through the first half of the race to rack up those points through the checkpoints. Even though he might not end up winning the race overall, he might have accumulated enough points to win on points. Does that make sense? So it adds a little different kind of dynamic to each race. And obviously there's going to have to be some sort of financial reason for these athletes to do these events, because otherwise they'll just stick to the mainstream, the basic ones, such as London Marathon, for example. And again, this is just a little bit of fun. I don't know how logistically we can incorporate these into real life situations, but I just think it gives a different dynamic, a different alleyway, and also a different way of making money for maybe less quick athletes, because obviously Kelvin Kipton, Eliud Kipchoge, they look like the two that are going to dominate the marathon for the next few years. So it gives an opportunity for other athletes to kind of take a shot at them almost, because suddenly different parts of the race matter more than others, if that makes sense. But again, just a bit of fun. I could be chatting absolute waffle. The next thing, guys, which I think was actually the main reason that I was really captivated by the Tour de France, was its dedicated Netflix series, Tour de France Unchained. Now, this isn't a new thing. I know that in tennis they did the full swing, and then in F1 they've done the Drive to Survive. I think this is definitely something that could be taken into the sport of running or athletics, where, say, Netflix, for example, follows certain athletes or certain clubs, take Bowerman Track Club or OAC, or they just follow, say, Jakob Ingebrigtsen for a season, for example. And it gives people an insight into the lives, the training, the background behind each competition. And you could call it something fun, I don't know, like hug the rail, sit and kick, whatever you want to call it, some sort of apt name for the series. But yeah, I just think it gives external viewers a chance to buy into the sport, and that's exactly what I've done with the Tour de France. Is I've watched Tour de France Unchained, fallen in love with the sport, and then it just so happens that the actual Tour de France 2023 was just around the corner, and it's gained itself a new fan, someone that's been watching it every single day, every single hour. And I just think it gives the opportunity for more people to buy into the sport. A dedicated kind of documentary style series to the sport of athletics, or specifically an athlete or a team. I just think it would be a really great insight into certain athletes, and obviously documentary style video format is absolutely booming at the moment, and yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. So guys, my final point are the variation in courses. Now, this is going to apply a little bit more to cross country, but basically alternating or differing courses. I know that, for example, say the national cross country takes place at Parliament Hill 3 out of every 4 years, but maybe every time we're at Parliament Hill, we try and change the course, make it different, make it so it's not the same thing over and over again. It makes it a little bit more kind of down to the actual racing and how you can kind of adapt to certain situations rather than just knowing the course inside out. Again, it's a little bit of a small change or a small implementation, but I just think it could add much more variation or variety to the sport, which is, in my personal opinion, becoming a little bit monotonous. I know some of the hardcore running fans, people that have been running for years and years and years, maybe might not like some of the things I've spoken about in this video because they want the sport to be left as it is, this sacred kind of very simple, this very old-fashioned style sport. But I honestly think some of these changes could work absolute wonders, getting more sponsors, getting more money into the sport, but more importantly, getting more fans, more engagement, and a better kind of audience feel to the sport. I think it's so important, and I think it's definitely doable. The sport has got it. It's got the racing, it's got the personalities, it's got the speed and the tenacity and all of the different adjectives you want to imply. It's got it. The sport that we love, long distance running, athletics, it has honestly got everything you need for a viewer spectacle. And I think if we portrayed it a little bit more like the Tour de France, and you can see the supporters out there, they're absolutely crazy. They absolutely love it. So yeah, anyway guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. A little bit of fun, just things that we could change about the sport of running or implement into the sport of running. Very Tour de France style. Don't get me wrong, I love our sport and I would rather not change anything than risk destroying it. But I think at the same time, it's a little bit of fun. Why not test these sort of things? I know that Podium 5K, for example, I think they're supported by sportshoes.com. They're thinking about putting on some sort of like team-based events like the Home Nations 5K that I already mentioned in this video. Again, I just think there's so much opportunity to kind of make some variety and make some changes in the sport to make it all a little bit more exciting, essentially. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share with your running buddies, and just before you go, drop down in the comments what you would name a kind of Netflix-style documentary series for an athletics team or an athlete. Something like I said earlier, like a sit and kick or hug the rail, something like that. Just, I'd be interested to know some of the cool names you guys could come up with. But anyway, love the pain, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.